Welcome back to Gold and Black Live, segment 2. We has nothing against Kyle, but we've upgraded. And, well, I guess that might be something against Kyle, actually. I think he should take that person. But he's having lunch over there, and he's happy as a clam. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Morgan Burke also, obviously. But Hilton Garden Inn in West Lafayette, Wabash Landing. State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Of course, Follett's Purdue stores a big night in terms of merchandise tomorrow night because of all the black and gold shirts that will be evident and present in Ross-Ade Stadium. And, of course, too, West Point Steakhouse, our new sponsor for today's show, and will be with us here for the foreseeable future on Gold and Black Live. Morgan, welcome to the show. And you've got the beauty of the iPhone is being able to get up-to-date ticket information. We've heard a lot. George Age spoke with him yesterday. Student ticket sales moving. You're going to have a 60,000 plus crowd tomorrow night.
Yeah, as of I just got an email. We're about a little over 60,000 right now, and a good volume in the ticket office. So people are responding. The students in particular have come out in force. So my hunch is with the weather being clear, a little cool, that maybe that 62.5 is within reach.
Good, good. I mean, that's certainly been the tradition in Purdue Notre Dame over the years that game has been a sellout in West Lafayette. Wasn't 2 years ago, but but it was close, and it'll be approaching that tomorrow. Environment. You know, you've been around, you've been going to this game for a lot longer than you've been athletics director, but look at this game and say, what does this mean for a team that needs a spark and needs to beat a team like that?
Well, I think it's an opportunity, because I agree with you guys, and I've heard a lot of commentators say it. I don't know what the identity yet of a team is. I see a lot of good individual talent. Even in the Southeast Missouri State, which clearly we had more talent than they did, it was fun to see some of the freshmen that you've written about and see them produce. And it's a crazy year. I mean, you talked about Pitt in your earlier segment. They almost got beat by a 1AA team in Maine. Yeah. Clemson had to go like crazy to hold off a 1AA opponent in Wofford, and they came back and beat Florida State. Nebraska needed 21 points to get Fresno State. So it's just, it's a strange year. And I always believe, Coach Tiller certainly said this often, that you find out a lot about your team between that second, third, and fourth game. And I think we'll know a lot more about Purdue, and I think Brian Kelly will know a lot more about the Irish after tomorrow night.
When you had the press conference a couple years ago announcing you were going from Joe to Danny, you had mentioned there was some angst among the fans that you kind of wanted to quiet. Do you feel like that angst is maybe starting to percolate a little bit again?
No, I actually, interestingly, I don't spend all my time on the knucklehead side.
See, I do. So
yeah, I would, but I think that they have a point of view. I think there's certainly repetitive posts from the same people, so I don't know that it's a scientific survey. But I thought one of the things that I thought was interesting is after the Southeast Missouri State game, people beginning to make comments about, I could see the pipelines improving. It's still young, but they've got some experience. The Ricardo Allens, the Josh Johnsons. I thought I saw kind of a subtle endorsement of the recruiting efforts that Danny's put in. And we had made the comment that when Danny came in, one of the reasons we brought him in January of that year was to protect that recruiting class, and that class had Quan Short and Carson Wiggs and Albert Evans and others, and we held on to all of them but Roy Roundtree. I'd like to have Roy, but but everybody but that. And so to me, it was an interesting subtle shift. Now it's the same old. People want to see, and they're looking for a win that defines the program. And all the great teams we've had at Purdue, there's always a game in the season that turns people loose. I mean, in basketball a few years ago was a Wisconsin game that we had at home, and that was when those guys were sophomores, and it really slingshotted them. A year ago, it's when the volleyball team beats #1 Florida in 3 games. There's that defining moment, and we're still all looking for that. And I think we're positioned well. I don't think you can make this game too big so that everybody loses the sight of the fact we haven't even started the Big Ten season yet. So I think Joe Holland probably said it best. It's a big stage, it's a big opportunity, but they're going to get up, Sunday and go back to practice. So we got to make sure we keep continuing to get better. And but for the kick at Rice, we'd be sitting here 3-0, but we'd still be asking the same questions.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And you look at the situation, and we have obviously questions too from from readers that are viewers on basketball facilities, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. You had an article in the paper this week and when talking to Mike Carmen about the importance of attendance and what that means for this program. There's no doubt that when you go to a place like Rice at Houston, you see that Purdue fans are interested in this football program and willing to travel to see it. Yet home attendance, as you've said it before, isn't where you want it to be. It's going to be close to a sellout tomorrow night, but you've got a lot of tickets left. How important is that to the overall strength of the program, not just financially, but from an emotional and a fan perspective of what this program is supposed to be?
I think you hit it on the head. It's both. It's certainly the image to the recruits tomorrow night when they come in, and it's just not football that's got recruits, but every sport. It's a big recruiting weekend for Purdue athletics. So having that atmosphere and the electric nature that can radiate through that stadium is important. And then secondly, financially, people want us to invest. They want to be champions. That doesn't come easily. And so, the ability, they go hand in hand. And we know that we've got a responsibility. I've always said that good marketing can maybe put 4,000 or 5,000 people into the stands. The reality is we have to give people a reason to be there. Really have been impressed with the Ross-Ade Brigade. That's the paint crew prodigy, if you will, for football. And you would expect it as we got going with the paint crew, it was predominantly freshmen, and it grew each year. The freshmen who went to South, well, I think they're close to 2,000 in that student section, and they were there. They stayed for the entire Southeast Missouri game, even when it was decided, and I like that enthusiasm. So it is an important game. It's important to make that stadium relevant. We've seen it when it's been relevant, but our football, we've had peaks and valleys, and I've said this before. We've had 5 great peaks in our 100-plus year history, and we've had extended valleys. The reason we did the succession plan was to try to avoid that. And I think the jury's out, and I know some people have made up their mind. I certainly haven't. I think Danny Hope is doing what we're asking him to do. I think when you really sit back and critically evaluate a program, you look at 4 things. And I'm doing them in alphabetical order. Has he made the point of academics in a way that makes sense to the kids? Well, when he tells kids, look, I expect you to get A's and B's, we're not going to be averaging anything, that resonates. It's not talking about minimum standards. Well, we're not going to talk about minimum standards in terms of how we win either. So I think that's an important metric. Second one is, people remember back in 2004 and 5, we had gunshots, we had issues. We have to be honest about that. You don't see that right now. I clearly, and I think in the latter part of Joe's tenure and with Danny, the character of the kids is important. I think that's a key point. And the third one's recruiting. And I'm not a big proponent of all the recruiting services because I don't think it's as finely calibrated as it can sometimes appear. But the needle's moved. And look at this class that's forming now, and you look at the composite ranking in that class. It's different than it was a few years ago. We were running the 50 to 75 range for the class. Am I right?
Right.
About that? And I think the last snapshot I saw was probably in the mid-30s. So to me, it says you're moving the metrics. Now, the fourth and the paramount one is performance on the field. And last year was just hard to make that kind of assessment with the kind of crazy injuries. So that's why this game builds up more, I think, interest in my mind to see are we ready to take that next step. And so I'll be watching as eagerly as all the fans, and I got a few butterflies right now.
All right.
Going back to the questions that have come through, this will be a night game, obviously. There will be lights at this game. Obviously, people always want to know about permanent lights in Ross-Ade. Can you just share your philosophy?
I will tell all the fans out there,
issue, as you know.
if folks, it's a hot button issue for a few. And it's the same people, because when I would go to the board and see the posts, I could see who the posts are coming from, at least their web names. But what I would tell you is, if somebody wants to write me a check for $1 million, and I don't know what lights would be, but I'm going to say it's going to be in that order of magnitude, I'm happy to put them in. The problem is I can't tell you what return on investment you're going to get. I can't dictate the start times. We're in the noon window. They want it. They're going to have so many windows that they're going to put. So, if the night game was so critical, we should have been sold out. We announced the night game for Notre Dame back in June.
Oh yeah,
it's been known. So the reality is, the cost-benefit relationship is one that puzzles me. I know that people say build it and they will come. I just don't have those resources. But I guarantee you, somebody will write me a check and designate it for lights. I'll put them in just so we can get on to the next topic. but I don't know what kind of return on investment you're going to get.
There you go, people, write a check.
Yeah, we can start a telethon here right now. But I think you have other things you want to do, obviously, with Ross State Stadium. We've had a couple questions about that, maybe at some point, and that is, to quote unquote finish the stadium to the way in your mind what you want to see. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think there's 3 phases, and we're in phase 1 right now, and that was really the fixing of the indoor practice field, which is now as good as anybody in the country, and we did that back in about 2006 or 7. The second part, as part of the Mackey complex business plan, is to give them an outdoor complex with 200-yard fields, 1 field turf and 1 Bermuda. We've got that done. We got lights up for that so the kids can practice later in the night. And the third piece of that first phase was really to try to take care of the sports performance area, which we've started to make some upgrades not only in staffing, but also in the weight machines and the equipment that we have there. We put money into the Hall of Glory, so people go into the lobby. There's kind of a fresh look. Yeah. And kind of the final piece of that is, as we finish the Mackey Complex project, several of the sports that were housed in the Mollenkopf move over into the pavilion, and Nancy Cross and her team move over into the new Mackey complex. That opens up a bigger footprint for football. So we have some plans to redesign that space up there. So when you get off that elevator on the 3rd floor, it makes a statement. The Mollenkopf now is a football building. Mm-hmm. They have their own dedicated facility, and quite frankly, I don't know of any program anywhere in the country that has their stadium, their locker room, their indoor practice facility, sports performance, and meeting space all within about 100 yards of each other. I would challenge people to look for that kind of connectivity. We've worked hard to put it together, and it's taken a while, but that's phase 1. So we've still got a little segment to do on the 3rd floor. Phase 2 involves taking a good look at the south end zone. Originally, as people remember, I'd said I wanted to see the season ticket base get up to 52, 53,000. We put the deck on. That was my party line. I backed off that a little bit last year because it was pretty clear to me that the south end zone's a tough sell unless you were performing at a very high, consistent level. So our thought was, let's get those south end zone seats out. We can still family price and make it attractive for people on various budgets and use the north end zone. But they'll have a better viewing experience. I mean, you'll have access to a better, the video boards and the like. I think we will be in another couple of years, the video board will have reached about the 7th year, I think. This is our 2nd generation board. So we're going to be nearing the end of its useful life, and I've seen some models of a sideline to sideline video board. It's rectangular. Now that's not inexpensive to do, but it would pull it up closer to the stadium, so it would keep the noise in, but it would also create a better viewing experience for your fans. I think you do need to entertain the fans. I just think that's the way of the world today. So that video board becomes more important to you, particularly in football where you do have some scheduled pauses. And then we need to figure out how to program the space in the south end zone. I'm not sure what to do with it. It could be family, it could be club space, I'm not sure. But you can make it very attractive and build in a space for the Boilermaker Special, a little bit, we'll steal a little bit from Georgia Tech, how they bring the Rambling Wreck out. But you can do some things to have some fun that would really liven up the experience in that venue. That's phase 2. And we got to do our part to get the team excited so that the fans are coming back into the stadium. I think we're in the process of doing that. Phase 3 then is, I still believe the deck on the east side is what needs to be done because it will basically replace the inventory you lose in the south end zone, but it gives you 50-yard line seats. I mean, it gives you some quality, and you can cantilever premium space underneath to help with the debt service. So there is we always talk about the master plan for athletics. Believe me, there's a master plan for football, and we've been following it. And Mackey Complex has a very, very, very significant football component to it.
Question from Nick on Big Ten Network revenue, but also just the importance of the Big Ten Network and how much that's meant to produce bottom line, but also the conference's bottom line, and what that brings to the table when you're not bringing in as many fans as you'd like to be. How important is that continued growth of that network?
Well, first of all, the last statistics I heard, Alan, is that we have 45 million subscribers and are available in about 80 million homes. So that's a massive network launch, the most successful, I think, launch of any news station in the last 5-6 years is what I've been told. It is allowing all of the athletics programs in the Big Ten to remain broad-based. So that's significant because we know that football and men's basketball drive the lion's share of the revenue, and therefore what they don't use, plus this TV revenue, is what allows you to fund these broad-based programs. So it's very, very important. And it unlike other portions of our revenue, which have more cyclical nature to them, your ticket sales and the like, this one has been purposely built so the rights payments gradually increase over time to help with the inflation. Unlike any other business, I have health care costs that are going up that I've got to pay for our employees. So I need something where I've got a kind of a built-in escalator. So it is critically important. I will tell you the only downside, and I don't have any data, it's more intuition. I've always felt that more TV exposed people to the product. And if they got exposed to the product, they'd be inclined to come into the venues on a more regular basis. I now think we're hitting the point of saturation. I'll give you a case in point. Last year, I missed the Ball State game. We had a family wedding in California, so my son and I got up early in the morning. We go into one of the local establishments. It looked like your television station here. There was a bank of TVs. They had all 5 Big Ten games on. So we have to realize, and maybe take a page from Major League Baseball, that bigger stadiums may not be the answer. And I will tell you that we can make the same revenue in a smaller stadium by increasing the yield per ticket. And that's what's killing us right now. We're discounting pretty heavily to try to create some demand to get people into the venue. And we don't have to do that in Mackey because we have a tighter venue. And so I think the TV is both a blessing and a little bit of a curse.
Yeah. This kind of goes along some with the proliferation of the Big Ten network, but conference expansion obviously has been a very hot topic for the better part of the last 2 years. Do you think that's a good thing for college sports? This is kind of almost this every 6-month deal. We're talking about who's going where, that sort of thing, and I guess kind of a two-part question. What do you see the Big Ten becoming here in the next couple of years?
In response to your first question, it was fun to be on the sidelines and watch all the stuff happening because we knew that we weren't going to do anything. Number two, I don't think it's healthy. But I think it reflects the fact that many conferences across the United States have been put together on economic terms. So to me, it's similar to a merger and acquisition, where you put two companies together on the balance sheet. It looks like a perfect fit, but they're two very different cultures. Clearly, that's something that has happened within the old Southwest Conference and the Big Eight. That's one good example. I think where we've looked at expansion, we've done it first and foremost to look at if it was a cultural fit. And the presidents have been involved, and the provosts and the athletic directors, to try to make sure that people understand the Big Ten we share. And we're going to push for the brand. We're going to do what's right for the brand. But it's more. If you look at the Big Ten and see the number of meetings, for example, that are held up at the conference headquarters that are not athletic, you'd be astounded. It is far and away the largest. So, the provosts are meeting up there, the research people are meeting. So it's a lot more than an athletic conference. I think when it comes down to athletics and just finding television revenue, at some point in time it'll break apart. And I think that's what you're seeing. So I think we've gone about it in at least the best way that we know how to do it. We've added 2 very strong land-grant universities, or kind of the bookend of the Big Ten. I don't know what the right number is. I don't think you're done with consolidation. I don't know what the right number is because you can get too big and you can lose your brand. But there are just too many unholy alliances that don't make sense other than on paper. So what the tipping point is, I don't know. I thought maybe the Texas A&M thing might have precipitated more. I thought a few years ago the Pac-10 might have triggered it. We were okay with 11 for a long time. People kind of ridiculed us. I think we're fine where we are. We'll continue to scan the environment. Delaney does a good job on that, but I don't see it as being a hot topic at this juncture.
Can the Big Ten stand at 12 for the long haul if everybody else is just stacking teams on top of teams?
I don't know. We stood at 11, didn't have a football championship till this year, and seemed to do okay. So I hope we'll always make the decision based upon the core values of the Big Ten, which have been laid out and started back in 1896. And the reality is, while the world changes, those fundamental values can't change, or you won't have a strong conference, because athletic directors leave, presidents leave. These institutions have been around for 140, 50 years, so those values are important.
Our questions are stacking up for Morgan. We're going to lay them all on Stacy when she comes in with Morgan here in segment 3. Brian, you get to go. You've already eaten lunch, so you can go back to work, I guess. But no, in all seriousness, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes and get to more of your questions on Gold and Black Live.
Just one night. One team victorious. The story behind the score. The rivalries. The big plays. From the sidelines to you. On the air, online. Are you ready for the frenzy? Friday Night Frenzy. High school football from where you live.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts. League and champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous. Simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's. Purdue pride. A Purdue tradition. 17 game day locations.
West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned restaurant known for premium quality steaks. Open for dinner Thursday through Saturday. Stop by for the Thursday night prime rib special or Friday and Saturday night specials like pasta and seafood. Be sure to come and enjoy all the food and fun at West Point Steakhouse.
You can now get a quote or buy car insurance 24 hours a day. Call me, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, at 743-9595 and see how much money you can save today.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
When you see it happen, report it. Send us your news stories, photos, and videos with our Report It feature. It's easy with WLFI.com and the WLFI smartphone app. With a few simple clicks, you can send videos and photos of breaking news coverage. See your submissions on air as part of our broadcast or online in the Report It gallery. WLFI.com. Always mobile, always connected.
Upgrade number 3. To Stacy, Brian goes. Stacy comes in. Morgan's still here. So,
Just 'cause I'm a girl,
the one thing
yeah.
that's great about this show is Friday afternoons of football weeks. That's why we get. I think we do get a good audience, but also it is a good time because everybody's getting excited about the game and starting to talk about it. And that is one thing in the wheelhouse of this show that I think does play well. Now we're going to have to wait a little bit longer till tomorrow night for the primetime game, Purdue Notre Dame, 8 o'clock. In Ross-Ade Stadium. I want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, who will be on the sidelines as per usual on Saturday. He'll be on the sidelines tonight of some high school game, as we say every week. Follett's Purdue's stores and our good friend Jeff Julik and the Purdue Pride store merchandise. A lot of talk about that this week, obviously, with the black and gold shirts and what we'll see for those of you that will be watching on television tomorrow night. And, of course, West Point Steakhouse, our new sponsor. Welcome to the fold, so to speak. Morgan, talk a little bit about the black and gold event. And, we've seen Boise State do that to an art form, and a number of other schools obviously have picked it up. Any feedback or any feeling of how that's going to play out tomorrow night? They're going to have to wear it under. It's going to be a little cool, so they may have to wear it over their.
My hunch is after they've tailgated for a few hours, they'll be just fine. That'd be my hunch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be kind of fun. I mean, we saw it the time that we saw it last year was Iowa.
Yeah.
They did it section by section. We're doing a little bit differently. But I just think it's fun. It's to get people engaged a bit, and I know there'll be some people telling me I'm trying to sell T-shirts, but I don't make enough on the T-shirts to.
Yeah, cheap shirts are cheap, right? $12
Yeah, they're not.
So.
Yeah, but I just think it adds a little something. And we started it. We weren't sure it was going to be a night game, so we started planning for this well in advance. Night game makes it easier because, as we've told people in the past, our colors don't show up very well on television.
Yeah.
Black is a hard color to stand out, and then the gold. There are so many different shades of gold.
Right.
And everybody has their shade, but there are a whole bunch, and so that creates problems. So I think it'd be kind of fun. That's one reason they went to 4 quadrants, so the gold would stand out a little better. So it'd be kind of fun to see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be another byproduct of Purdue Notre Dame, and something to be watching for tomorrow. Stacy?
You told me that I'm asking the questions that were on the list.
No, you can ask any questions you want. I was going to let you fire one away.
Someone did ask about considering doing a Thursday night or a Friday night game to kind of put Purdue in the prime time, so to speak, with no one else.
Well, we're in the prime time. We're on the prime time tomorrow, and I think when we played on Labor Day, or when we played 2 years ago on a Sunday, we were in the prime time. Yeah. I would tell you that I think the campus, and I certainly want to check this out with the president and the provost, but if it were the first game of the season, so you're in that Labor Day weekend, I don't think there'd be an objection to a Thursday night. I'm kind of a traditionalist on Friday. I still think that's a high school night, and I think we need to be respectful. They're trying to build those programs that are feeding us. But a Thursday night game, we'd probably make ourselves available to do that if it made sense for the networks.
A question from our friend Rob, who's always on watching us. Any idea, and this is a question I get a fair amount as well, any idea when and this is a great, do you have any idea when it'll be done? He does know when it'll be done. Any idea when the basketball practice in Mackey will be usable? Judging by the look in the windows on a visit to Purdue this past weekend, it seems like it won't be by the start of the season, let alone the start of basketball practices. I think there's a reason for that.
It'll be ready in about January 1st, and that was always the plan, so it hasn't changed at all. The emphasis right now is to finish the exterior work on the southwest corner. It's a mad dash to the finish, it always is, but I generally like to look at the construction manager. He's a Purdue civil engineer. His name's J.R. Hudson. He's done a marvelous job. If I start to see him sweating on his lip, then I'm going to know we're in trouble. But right now, it'll be, what fans have to remember is on 11/11/11, the basketball proper will be done. There's still things that have to go on in the project. So the practice facility comes in January. You'll have the tunnel will come in next year after the season, and then the whole Breeze Academic Center, which is in the second floor of the IF, gets attention, and then your landscape. So when people come to the facility, they're going to be excited, but they're going to see some things and say, "Geez, are you done?" The answer is no. May of 12 is when you finally wrap up all of the aspects of the project, which includes soccer at the Northwest site, which is growing as we speak, and baseball. And baseball, we would hope to have that announced or ready for the first game in April. And there's a very significant announcement today that came out of the university that Dave Alexander is a former baseball coach at Purdue. Dave has made a leadership gift to that project on behalf of his parents, and the field will be known as Alexander Field in honor of his mother Anna and his dad John. It's kind of a fitting and very touching story as people will see as it unfolds.
Yeah, nobody more into baseball in general, and of course his history of coaching at Purdue for over the years than Dave Alexander, and that I think is a very fitting situation to say the least. Contracts, we get talk about that. Matt Painter, a lot went on back in late March, early April. Now that obviously that still is it's been settled, but glad to have that passed and Matt be here for the long term, and yet that is also the nature of the landscape of college sports.
Well, again, I think it was important for Matt to be chaste and to recognize Purdue's the place he wants to be at, and every young professional who's out there listening will go through a point in time in his or her career when they're in a good job, but somebody comes after and recruits them. It's kind of an intoxicating feeling, and certainly Missouri's a good school. But I think when it came down to it, came right down to it, Matt, looked in the mirror and said, "This is where I want to be," and I'm delighted. I was the one who hired him. So to me, it was a reaffirmation for me that he wanted to be at Purdue, but it was also a reaffirmation to him that I was excited about having him continue at Purdue. So it's a win-win on both sides. I know people like to make a lot out of negotiations, but at the end of the day, you don't know when somebody's going to come knock on your door. You can't script these things, and I think we were nimble, we were responsive, and I'm glad it's worked out for him. It's worked out for Purdue, and I'm excited to see how those kids will do this year.
Yeah, it's still in the process of being signed, but that's something that takes time.
We're working on a deferred compensation arrangement that has a lot of IRS implications, and
you got
to get that done. We are paying him as if the contract's in place, so there are no issues.
Obviously, on the flip side of that is Sharon Versup on the women's side, and she also signed an extension and got a pretty hefty raise in June. We haven't seen anything official from Purdue on that. I guess what was just kind of you working on that as in conjunction kind of with the math
we did
stuff?
one with Dave Shondell too, and I think our opinion is that when you announce these things, it becomes a bigger deal than it's really meant to be. And we're not hiding anything because you can get them with a public records request. But in this particular circumstance, we felt both those programs and the leadership that both Sharon and Dave had exhibited were worthy of some adjustments, and so we made those adjustments. You're also in a period of time when the economic climate in this county and this country is very challenged. And so people kind of take umbrage. I'm out talking on the one hand about our scholarship fund, which is hemorrhaging, and people who don't understand our finances and how the money comes in say, geez, you got money over here to do this, you don't have money over to do that. It's confusing to people. So in some respects, we're probably not going to make a big deal out of contract extensions in the future. We're not hiding anything. People ask us a question, we'll tell them, but now people will probably ask me at the end of each season, but at the end of the day, I think we have, we've talked about those three coaches. I think Danny Hope will join that group. We have a great set of coaches, Devin Browse and you on and on. We're really fortunate with the coaches we have.
Yeah. Look at both basketball programs. I know it's not, although the women start practice, I think, next week, and both teams obviously working out as well to get it ready for the start of formal practice. Women come in with a team that consensus top 20, maybe some pick them even the top 15 or so. Men's team has been, we've seen this before over the years, a team that's I think you kind of like if you know a lot about basketball, but no one's going to pick them, or few will pick them in the top 25. Tell us what you see for both those teams.
I think that, again, if you're inside the program or you're close to the program, you come to a lot of the games, you sit there and say, Ryan Smith, to me, he's as good as Diebler. He's not 6'6", but he's you look at last year in terms of the number of turnovers he had, very few, and a strong shooting guy. DJ Bird was probably a little bit out of position last year, having to play a 4. You really had to bang hard down low from a rebounding perspective. I think that'll help him be a little bit more consistent shooter. You're going to get Robbie back. Everybody wants to see how he'll play. We think he'll be fine. Robbie and Juwan was always a hard two guys to have on the floor because Juwan was more effective if he was out a little bit further away from the basket. So that's where Robbie's the most effective. So in some respects, it's going to help you. And you got traditional post players this year, and Travis Carroll and Sandy Marcius. Always mispronounce Sandy's name. But it gives you some low post threats where I think you can play that high-low game a little differently than you've done. And Lewis Jackson's a tough nut. I mean, he's a good point guard. You had Tyrone Johnson. Anthony Johnson's had a year to kind of bulk up a little bit. He's picked up 10 pounds. And that's, I haven't seen the freshmen yet, so we'll see what they add to it. But I think you have a good pipeline and, great programs. And we certainly had this under Coach Katie. Tom Izzo's had at Michigan State. You don't rebuild, you reload. And I think that's the way Matt and his guys are looking at it. In some respects, takes the bullseye off the back a little bit. And, we may have some bumps as we get going and getting the rhythm going. But I'm eager to see them. I think people will like the talent on that team. Sharon's team, I'm just, after what we went through last year with Dre Mingo and nearly losing her and to have 6 seniors. Last time we had 6 seniors, I think we ran North Carolina off the court on our way to an Elite 8 finish. But I like the pipeline that she's got now. I mean, a year ago you had Dee Dee Williams and Courtney Moses. People began to see that they could play. Now you had Lisa Clemens out of Fort Wayne and Tori Thornton out of Carmel. All 4 of those kids are Indiana All-Stars. It's kind of back to the way we were. And you got a good pipeline. I always worry when you have 6 seniors, not about the year you're in, but about the next year. Because the year that we had, the last time we had 6 seniors, all those minutes got consumed, and then you have a gap. And I know that Sharon is concerned about that, and I think that's why she'll try to play a more tempo style so she can use it, go deeper on the bench.
Okay.
Am
Don't
I
look at
going?
me.
Oh.
I'm expecting you to
Well,
have questions.
I'm still learning how to read your looks. You know, I haven't been here that
Please,
long.
no, I can't. The beads of sweat. No, go ahead. If you don't have a question, I'll ask another.
No, I can go ahead.
Okay, go
We had a comment from a couple people actually that said, you know, just kind of praising the job that you've done. You and I have talked about this before. How long are you going to stay in your position? I mean, how are you feeling
It just
about
depends.
being here? And
Well, I love my job. And
Yeah.
it's not apparent, you know, those who come in contact with me, I love what I do. There's a time to get off the boat, and you know, everybody hopes you're smart enough to know that time. Most important thing is, does the president and the board still want me? And I think they do. So I don't have a predestined timeline. Seems like every time we kind of get to, they've been in 5-year segments. And Mackey's clearly been a 5-year segment, and I see something now in terms of what we need to do in football that excites me. And I was committed to trying to shave those peaks and valleys when I came in, and I think we can do that. And so I don't have a timeline, but I know that you can overstay your welcome. And there'll be a time when I go back in the stands happily, and I'll probably be as rabid as I may be on the knucklehead side.
Oh, no. Well, you have to pay for your subscription. That's okay, though. No, we would love to have you. Might bring some real interesting conversation from time to time, as if we don't have that. You are one of many that are serving on the President's Search Committee, and I know a couple weeks ago you said it's very early, and yet you have served under three presidents, right? Dr. Beering and Martin Jischke, and of course Dr. Cordova. Just from your perspective, and again, you can only speak for yourself, but what does Purdue need in its next president? What do you look at, or what are some of the things that come into play when you're looking for a leader of that nature in higher ed right now, which is like everything else in the world is in a crazy state and a challenging state?
Well, I think that Purdue's been fortunate to have 3 good presidents during the tenure that I've been here. They're all different. All brought different skill sets and different things to the table, but each of them made significant contributions. Martin did the infrastructure work that needed to be done to allow the research mission to grow. France has done a lot of things around student retention. I was at the board meeting today, and I think for the first time our retention rate between freshmen and sophomore is up to 90%. That's a record for Purdue. She approved the Mackey Arena project. That's a little hard. First time she comes on the job, and it's a $100 million project, biggest project in the university history. And I think what's happening in the rec center and some other things that'll develop on 3rd Street will build that student success factor. So I think each of them have done some interesting things. In terms of the future, Mike Berghoff is leading the team. We have lots of different ways of getting input, the faculty, staff, students. We have a relatively small committee, which I know people like to grow committees, but if you get too big, it's hard to be effective. And this is not a popularity contest. It really needs to be driven by what you think the internal and external scan of Purdue is led to. And I know the trustees have spent a lot of time looking internally at the university and at the whole idea of this decadal funding, looking at how we can grow revenue. You can't cut your way out of this. You can always look at cost containment, you can always look at cutting budgets, but you have to grow the revenue base. And as France said today in her comments, we can't sustain. I can't. I mean, our scholarship costs are doubling every 9 years. It's an 8% effective annual rate of increase. You can't do it. And so I think that the new president, certainly the research piece is really one that you're going to continue to grow. I think they have some good ideas on next steps in that area. I think you're going to see the continued emphasis on the entire system, not just the flagship campus at West Lafayette, but the entire system. There's 80,000 students in the Purdue system when you count Fort Wayne and Calumet and North Central. So that president's going to have to be adept in that. And I think the other thing is we are becoming a more global university. We have a very strong international enrollment again this year. So somebody who understands the global impact will be important. So I don't know that you'll see a rapid shift in terms of strategic focuses. The question is, can you find the right skill set that can pull together the team to really cause you want to double the resource base in 10 years. That's a pretty significant. That's like trying to land a man on the moon. I told France the other day. I said, when John Kennedy made that statement to people at NASA, I'm not sure how confident they were, and I use that teasing because she worked at NASA, but at the end of the day, it's allowed I think the trustees to take a series of future-looking ideas. I think the launching tomorrow's leaders, which is the student piece, discovery with delivery, which is the research piece, and the global Purdue, which is the outreach effort. And we certainly had a big announcement from the Chinese aluminum company this week in Lafayette. Those will continue to be the basic tenet. Now the question is, what are these other items that are part of the decadal planning effort? Which ones really seem, and over the next year that'll be fleshed out. Well, that may give you the roadmap you need for terms of skill set that might be important for the new president to have. So I think you know, the board of trustees. You know, I know people are always looking for kind of a, you know, symmetrical layout of the plan, but I think what they're doing makes a lot of sense, and I think it will give a roadmap so when the new person comes in, they'll have a good understanding of what do I have to do to protect the current strategic plan, and what are these incremental things that we think really can bend the curve in terms of our revenue. Who is that person, and what types of skills are they going to need? So I think it's actually the processes line up pretty nicely.
All right. That is going to be an interesting process. Something else we'll be watching certainly in the when is the target date? And I know we're running out of time.
Well, France's retirement is effective June 30th, and so I think if you know, you'd like to have somebody May, June, so there's a little bit of an overlap if you could. But you know, again, I think we're not going to be driven by a timeline. I've heard Keith Kroc say, "Look, I want the best. You know, I want a leader." He has a very definitive idea of what he thinks a leader should do in the higher education setting. So, you know, I don't think we'll be driven by artificial deadlines. It's not like I have to have a coach ready for the season.
That's right. They're going to play. They're going to play school here in West Lafayette next year, no matter what. Stacy and Morgan, thanks so much for joining me, and also Brian and Kyle for being part of the show. We'll be on next week. Next Friday. We're looking hopefully for Greg Gary, though we missed him a couple times ago because of some recruiting issues, or where he was stuck in Houston, and we're working on getting him for next week as well. Thank you again to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, and Follett's, and of course West Point Steakhouse. Thank you also to Gordon Jackson, to Patsy, to Barron, and to Kim that are helping us at the station with the show. If you missed part of the show, we will put Morgan's segment online tonight, so starting about 6 o'clock or so, we'll have it on there as well. Stay tuned for exciting football, not here in the next few minutes, but the next few hours. Purdue Notre Dame tomorrow. We'll have a lot to talk about next week on Gold and Black Live.